Taehan is sitting in his favorite restaurant, Song. It's not the fanciest place in town, but it's quiet, the food is good, and most importantly, no one bothers him. He's at a table in the corner, his back to the wall, overlooking the entire restaurant. He comes here to think. He has a lot to think about today. Money is flowing like a river, but the pipes are starting to gurgle. New ideas are needed, fresh solutions. His gaze wanders around the room and stops at the waitress. Her name is Imani. She's been working here for a few months. Taehan has always noticed her, not just because of her looks. Although she is truly beautiful, tall, slender, she moves with ease and grace. Her long, wavy black hair is always pulled back into a tight, high ponytail. She doesn't smile mindlessly at guests. Her face is calm, focused. She looks as if waiting tables is a temporary phase, and her thoughts are elsewhere, lost in more complex calculations. Imani approaches his table to clear away his empty plate. Her movements are precise, without making unnecessary noise. "Was everything okay?" she asks in a normal, even voice. Taehan looks at her. Numbers, diagrams, and problems are spinning in his head, and then an absurd, almost childish thought occurs to him. A joke, a desire to relieve tension. He's tired of his perpetually tense advisors, who fear him and only tell him what he wants to hear. He leans back in his chair, a lazy, slightly mocking smile appearing on his lips. "You know, Imani," he begins, playing with the edge of his napkin, "I have some spare cash, quite a bit, and I'm thinking about it. What do you think you'd invest it in? If you were in my shoes?" He waits for a reaction, expects to see an embarrassed grin, a shrug, maybe hear the usual phrases about real estate or banks. Maybe she'll blush and mumble something unintelligible. For him, it's just a game, a momentary distraction, a breath of fresh air before returning to his complex and dangerous world. Imani freezes, plate in hand. She doesn't blush. She doesn't smile. She looks at him. Her dark eyes search his face, as if searching for a clue. Is he joking or serious? The pause stretches on for several seconds, which Taehan finds awkward. He's almost ready to throw up his hands and say, "Forget it." But she doesn't let him do it. Imani slowly places the plate back on the table. She folds her hands in front of her, adopting the pose of someone ready for a business meeting. Her expression becomes completely neutral, professional. "Okay," she says quietly but clearly. "If the question is serious, I need a structured answer. It all depends on the goals and the origin of the capital." Taehan barely suppresses a grin. "Origin? She's really getting into character." He nods, feigning interest. "Let's say the capital is varied, and it needs to be diversified. Some of it needs to be made absolutely pure." Imani nods, her gaze sharp as a scalpel. "Then first, your current schemes for cashing out through a network of pawnshops in the suburbs are too transparent. The flow goes through 3 main nodes, which are already in sight. They need to be shut down within a month, 2 at the most." Taehan's face fades. Pawnshops, suburbs, 3 hubs. This information is known only to him and his 2 most trusted people. His heart starts beating a little faster. Imani continues, looking over his head, as if reading an invisible report. "Second, investing in that construction company's stock is a mistake. Its largest contractor is about to declare bankruptcy due to a tax fraud investigation. The stock will plummet 40% in a week. You need to sell it by the end of tomorrow to minimize your losses." Taehan feels a chill run down her spine. Negotiations to buy these shares ended 3 days ago. The papers haven't even arrived in the account yet. How could she know about the contractor and the investigation? This information is not public. "And the third weakest link," Imani's voice now sounds merciless. "Your partner at the Loft nightclub. He inflates his alcohol bills by 2.5 times. The difference ends up in his personal offshore accounts. You pay for his personal luxury. The contract with him is a drain that drains 15% of your monthly turnover." Taehan doesn't smile anymore. He doesn't move. He looks at Imani, but doesn't see the waitress. He sees a ghost, or an extremely dangerous adversary. The amusement, the joke, the momentary weakness, all of it evaporates, replaced by a chilling, animalistic attention. Who is she? Who sent her? How does she know all this? His mind races, running through the options. A competitor? No. They wouldn't reveal their hand like that. The police? Too much delving into the details. One of their own? Possibly. But then why this whole spectacle? He has to check. Do one last test. His fingers involuntarily tighten on the edge of the table. "Let's say I take your advice," he says, his voice a little hoarse. "Where should I transfer the liquidity from those pawnshops? urgently, to something as discreet as possible. Imani thinks for a moment. She doesn't look scared or triumphant. She looks like an analyst solving a problem. There are several options, she says. You can transfer in increments through the crypto exchanges Argo and Vector, but they have high commissions. A better option is to use treasury bonds from a small Pacific nation, Coralia. Their purchases are almost untraceable. You can transfer through your account at the Asian Trust Bank, the one with the code Sunny Bunny. The interest rate there is low, but for the purpose of this project, silence is key. The air comes out of Taehan's lungs. Sunny Bunny. It's the name of a nursery rhyme. It's a password. It's the code name for his most secret, most secure account. An account that no one knows about. Not Jin, not his other assistants. This account exists only in his head and in the encrypted records of one specific banker in Zurich. It's his emergency fund, his personal immunity. And this woman, this waitress in a black apron, just said this name as casually as she says, "The bill, please." This is not a coincidence. This is not a guess. This is knowledge. The ice in his chest gives way to a flash of rage, mixed with panic. His secret, his last refuge, is compromised. He stands. The chair slides back with a crash. Several patrons turn around. Imani doesn't back down. She looks at him with the same calm, appraising gaze. "Do you need a glass of water?" she asks, as if he's just feeling unwell. Taehan doesn't answer. He takes a wad of cash out of his pocket, throws a few bills on the table without even looking, and turns abruptly. He has to leave. Now. He has to process what just happened. He steps outside, and the cold evening air hits his face, but it can't cool the heat in his head. Sunny Bunny. One phrase turned everything upside down. The next day is a feverish affair. Taehan checks everything. Pawn shops, a construction company, a nightclub. Every word Imani says turns out to be true. The contractor's details only leaked into classified analytical reports this morning. His club partner, when Taehan had a nice word with him, immediately broke down and confessed everything, sobbing. But the main thing is that account. Taehan calls his banker using an emergency channel. After a long pause and a series of checks, he confirms. There have been no external requests or access attempts to the Sunny Bunny account file in the last 72 hours. The account is clear. How did she find out? How? Imani's address isn't hard to find. A modest apartment in a not-so-new neighborhood. That evening, Taehan stands at her door. He's arrived alone. This is too personal to drag anyone along. It makes a knocking noise. The door doesn't open right away. Someone looks at him through the peephole. Then the locks click. Imani stands in the doorway. She's wearing simple sweatpants and a t-shirt, her gorgeous hair loose and falling in waves almost to her waist. She doesn't look surprised. "I knew you'd come," she says simply, stepping aside to let him in. "Come in." The apartment is small but very neat. There's a laptop on the desk, next to a stack of books on economics and international law. Nothing extraneous. Taehan asks without preamble, stopping in the middle of the room. "Who sent you?" Imani closes the door and leans against the wall, crossing her arms over her chest. "Nobody sent me. I work as a waitress." "It's true." "Don't play with me!" His voice breaks. He takes a step forward. "How do you know about the Sunny Bunny?" She looks at him straight. There's no fear in her eyes. There's weariness. And some deep sadness. "I can't tell you that. Believe me, this knowledge poses no threat to you. I have no intention of using it." "You're not a threat?" Taehan laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You know everything. You see right through me. That's the biggest threat." They look at each other in the silence of the small apartment. He is tense, ready for action. She is calm as a rock. "What do you want?" he finally asks, lowering his voice. "Money?" Imani shakes her head. "No." "Then what?" She looks away, looking out the window at the city lights. "I just gave you some advice. Free. You can take it or forget about me. I'm not asking for anything more." Taehan understands he won't achieve anything this way. Threats don't work on her. She's not interested in money. There's some kind of impenetrable inner confidence about her, and that infuriates him even more. But alongside the anger, another feeling is born. Interest. A sharp, burning interest. "Okay," he says, changing tactics. He pretends to calm down, walks into the room, and sits on the edge of a chair at the table. "Let's say I believe you're not a spy. Your advice is valuable. Obviously." I checked. Imani turns her head towards him, waiting for him to continue. "I'm offering you a job," says Taehan. "A real one. not a waitress. You'll be my financial advisor. You'll analyze my assets, find weaknesses, offer solutions. Officially, with a good salary. He waits for her eyes to light up. The offer is more than generous. But Imani shakes her head again. No. Why? He doesn't understand. Because I see what you're doing, she says quietly but firmly. I see those assets. Most of them are gray or black. I don't want anything to do with it. I have no part in it. Taehan feels irritated by her principled approach. You're already involved. You know too much. Knowledge is not participation. I gave advice on how to escape from shaky schemes. If you follow it, your affairs will become cleaner. That's all I can do. In Taehan's mind, strange, impulsive, against all his rules. But he feels this opportunity can't be missed. Such intelligence, such awareness. This is a weapon. Or salvation. Okay, he breathes out. Terms. Your terms. What terms will you agree to? Imani looks at him for a long time, as if weighing his sincerity. Legal assets only, she says clearly. I'll only work with those that have a clean history, pay all taxes, and have no ties to anything illegal. You show me a business, and I'll decide whether I'll work with it or not. Complete transparency on my part regarding my methods, and on yours regarding the origin of the funds. No pressure, no special assignments from the shadow world. My office, my team, if needed, is outside your main organization. I'm a consultant, not a member of your team. Taehan listens, his eyes gradually widening. These aren't conditions. This is capitulation. He, Taehan, the head of a large organization, is supposed to hand over part of his business to this woman on her terms? His people will react with hostility. It will look like weakness. He should refuse, say no, and leave. But he remembers her words. A sunbeam, her precise analysis, her calm confidence. He sees the books she's reading on the table. This isn't a fluke. This is an expert. Okay, he hears his own voice. I accept. Your terms, legal assets, transparency, your office, everything. Imani raises an eyebrow slightly. She clearly wasn't expecting agreement. She nods, once. Okay, when can I start? Tomorrow. I'll send a car for you. When Taehan leaves her apartment, he feels simultaneously drained and excited. He's just made either the most brilliant or the most stupid deal of his life. The next day, Taehan's closest associates gathered in one of his rooms, which was to become his office. Jin, his senior assistant, a man with cold eyes and a permanent half-smile, stood at the head of the table. Everyone knew that Taehan had gone out alone yesterday, and that today he had announced that he was hiring a new financial advisor. When Taehan appears in the doorway, followed by Imani, the room is deathly silent. Everyone looks at her strict dress, at her hair pulled back into a ponytail, at her direct, independent gaze. She doesn't fit into their world. This is our new finance chief, says Taehan, without going into detail. Her name is Imani. She'll be overseeing new projects and the restructuring of some assets. You'll be working with her. Jin is the first to break the silence. He snorts softly, then his half-smile stretches into a wide, openly mocking grimace. Taehan Sayem, excuse me, he begins, not taking his eyes off Imani. I don't get it. Is this a joke? We're now hiring waitresses to manage money? Or is this a new recruitment method? A beautiful girl discovers our secrets at a table, and then we hire her? Very original. A few people chuckle quietly. Taehan tenses but remains silent, watching. Imani turns to Jin. She doesn't blush or look down. I was hired for my professional skills, Mr. Jin, she says icily. If you doubt them, we can discuss, for example, the effectiveness of your recent electronic supply operations through the port of Busan. Margins there fell by 18% in a quarter due to a suboptimal supply chain, which you personally approved. The smile on Jin's face vanishes instantly. His eyes narrow to slits. The room is silent again, but this time it's tense. Imani has just demonstrated that she knows not only Taehan's business, but also the specific operations of his right-hand man, and she knows the details. Where are you from? Jin begins through clenched teeth. Taehan interrupts, feeling a strange satisfaction. What's important is that she already sees the problems, which is where we'll start. Imani, your office is ready. Jin, give her all the report is on the Southern District and logistics, completely. Jin turns pale with rage. He looks at Imani not as a joke, but as a direct threat. an enemy who has already crossed the threshold and gained access to his most sensitive areas. Of course, Tae-han-sai, he says, bowing, but a cold fire burns in his eyes. Everything will be provided. Welcome to the team. The last words sound like a quiet but clear threat. Imani hears it. She meets Jin's gaze and nods slightly, as if accepting the challenge. She's here, and she's not going to back down. And Tae-han watches this silent duel of gazes and realizes he's opened Pandora's box. He's brought into his world a force he can't fully control, and this force has just declared war on the most powerful person in his circle. From this moment on, everything will change, and there's no stopping it. A small but bright office in the business center now belongs to Imani. It has a new computer, several monitors, and a printer. No personal belongings. This is a workstation. Tahan comes to see her on the second day. He expects to see Jin's preliminary logistics analysis, but Imani sits at the table empty-handed. On the monitor screen is a blank spreadsheet. Well? Tahan asks, sitting down opposite. Imani looks at him straight. The reports you provided are useless. They're just official accounting papers. They only show what's supposed to be there. I need full access to all bank accounts, internal transactions, contracts, promissory notes, to numbers that never see the light of day. Tahan freezes. His gut instinct screams, no, this is too much. Giving someone access to all his accounts is like handing over the keys to his safe. Even Jin didn't have such complete access. Tahan always shared information so no one would see the full picture. It's impossible, he says harshly. Then I can't work, Imani replies just as sternly. I'm not a fortune teller. I can't build a strategy based on pretty charts. I need to see real cash flows. That's it. Or I quit now. They look at each other across the table. Taehan feels the ground shift from under his feet. He bet on her. He brought her here against the will of the team. And now she demands what no one else has. What are you going to do with it? He asks, trying to buy time. I'll look for weaknesses, leaks, and inefficient spending. And I'll build a transparent financial structure for the legitimate part of the business. But for that, we need a complete picture. Taehan gets up and goes to the window. He sees the city he considers his own. But today, he feels less like a master and more like a gambler who has bet too much. He thinks about Sunny Bunny. She already knows its biggest secret. What worse could she see? He turns, his face unreadable. Okay, you'll have access. In an hour, a file with logins and passwords will be sent to your computer. Temporary access for 72 hours. After that, it will be disabled. Prove it's necessary. He sees something like respect flicker in Imani's eyes. She nods. I'll prove it. When Taehan leaves the office and goes down to the garage, where a car with 2 fighters awaits, he sees their faces. They know. Rumors spread quickly in their world. They know he just handed over the keys to the treasury to an unknown woman. He reads a question in their silence, and disappointment in some of their eyes. His authority, built on absolute control, has shown its first crack. For what? For the waitress with the piercing gaze. For 72 hours, Imani barely leaves her office. She sleeps for a few hours on the fold-out sofa and orders food. Her monitors are lit day and night. She builds schemes, identifies patterns. She finds what she's looking for. Hidden fees, double accounts, transfers into the pockets of proxies. But among this sea of numbers, one name catches her eye. It appears infrequently, once every few months. But the amounts are always large, rounded. And the strangest thing is, these payments come not from the main accounts, but from reserve accounts. Those used for emergency or highly confidential transactions. Recipient's name, Kang Hyun-chul. She checks internal lists of partners, suppliers, and contacts. His name isn't there. She checks records of payments to the team. Khan's name isn't there either. These transactions appear autonomous, existing on their own, like a regular tribute to someone outside of Taehan's system. An hour before the access period expires, Imani compiles a brief report. She highlights 3 main problems, including Jin's logistical scheme. Finally, in a separate section, she writes, regular, non-targeted transfers to individual Kang Hyun-chul. The total amount over the past 2 years exceeds a significant threshold. The recipient does not appear in any internal databases, requires clarification. She sends a report to Taehan and logs out of the system. Access is terminated exactly 72 hours later. Taehan reads the report in his office. The first few paragraphs anger him, but that's to be expected. The last paragraph makes him freeze. Kang Hyun-chul, The name means nothing to him. He calls his accountant, the one who keeps the reserve accounts, an old, nervous man. Who is Kang? Why are we paying him? Asks Tihan, not looking up from the paper. The accountant turns pale. I don't know, say. I'm getting instructions. From Jinsei. He said it was an outside consultant for special services. I was just following orders. Jin again. But why had Jin been transferring large sums of money to some mysterious Kang for years? And why didn't Taehan know anything about it? The next morning, Taehan gathers key people in the conference room. He plans to announce decisions regarding Imani's report. He is determined to deal with Jin and the mysterious Kang. But the meeting doesn't start as he planned. Jin isn't alone when he enters the room. He's accompanied by two of his most trusted men. Jin's expression expresses noble indignation. Taehan Sai, before we begin, Jin says loudly, we have an urgent security matter concerning our new employee. All eyes turn to Imani, who sits off to the side of the table with her notepad. What happened? Taehan asks coldly. A large sum of money has gone missing from the Southern District's operating cash register. Last night, Jin pauses for effect, and this morning, one of our men saw something interesting. One of Jin's men steps forward. He looks embarrassed, but speaks confidently. I saw Imani Sai enter the empty office on that floor yesterday, not for long, and this morning, when we raised the alarm, I decided to check her things. In her bag, in her pocket, I found this. He takes a wad of bills out of the envelope, an unopened banknote, the same as the missing one. A murmur erupts in the hall. People look at Imani with hatred and glee. They knew it. Spy! Thief! Imani sits motionless, her face chalk white. She looks first at the money, then at Jin, and a cold, clear understanding lights up in her eyes. It's a lie, she says quietly, but her voice carries in the silence. I wasn't on that floor yesterday, and that money doesn't belong to me. They were found in your bag, someone from the crowd shouts. Imani says, looking straight at Taehan, a pure and simple setup, but her words are drowned out by a chorus of indignant voices. Fire her! Kick her out! Give her the money! The pressure is mounting. Even those who were neutral are now against her. The proof is right before their eyes. Taehan looks at the wad of cash, at the furious faces of his men, at Imani's pale face. His mind is racing. Does he trust Imani? His gut instinct tells him it's a trap, but he has no proof, and the team's demands are unanimous. If he defends her now without cause, he will lose the last of his authority. He's on the brink. At that moment, there was a quiet knock on the hall door. Everyone turned. An elderly man in a security guard uniform stood in the doorway. It was Kim, who had been working in their building for years. Quiet, inconspicuous. Everyone ignored him. He was holding an old cell phone and looked extremely awkward. What do you want? Jin asks sharply. I brought something for Taehan Sai, the guard says quietly. It's important. Taehan waves at him. Security guard Kim approaches, bows, and hands him his phone. The video pauses on the screen. What is this? Taehan asks. The cameras in the second-floor hallway were fixed yesterday, Kim mutters. But my portable camera for checking locks, it was on. I accidentally left it there. It's recording to a memory card. I watched the footage today and saw this. Taehan presses the play button. The screen shows an empty hallway. Jin enters the frame. He looks around, then quickly enters the same empty office. A minute later, he comes out. In his hands is the same wad of cash in a bank tape. He looks around again and quickly leaves. The recording ends. A deathly silence descends on the room. Everyone looks at Jin. His face first turns white, then sallow. His half-smile vanishes without a trace. Taehan slowly looks up from his phone and at his senior aide. There's more than just anger in his gaze. It's disappointment, betrayal, and fury all rolled into one. Taehan doesn't scream. His silence is more terrifying than any scream. He gets up from the table. Every movement is slow, controlled. Jin, he says in a quiet, metallic voice. Get out. Jin tries to say something. Taehan Sai, that can be explained. I wanted to check on her. Get out! Taehan's voice reverberates through the room like thunder. Jin shudders. His men retreat from him as if he were a leper. He realizes the game is lost. He casts a last venomous glance at Imani, who looks back calmly and slowly leaves the room. Taehan glances at the others. Everyone tries not to meet his eyes. That's it. Out, now. People quickly, almost running, leave the hall. A minute later, only Taehan, Imani, and the old security guard, Kim, remain in the room. Taehan approaches Kim. Thank you. Your retirement will be a worthy one. Now leave us. Kim bows and hurries out. The door closes. Taehan stands in the middle of the empty hall, his back to Imani. His shoulders are tense. He's not angry at Jin. He's angry at himself. How could he have been so blind? How did he allow his right-hand man to play a double game for years? Pay someone named Kyung? And almost believe such a simple provocation against the only person who tells him the truth? He feels like a fool. And this feeling burns him inside more than any betrayal. Taehan finally says, without turning around, forever. His people too. They're all leaving. Imani is silent. She gives him time. Taehan turns around, his face tired. You were right. About everything. Thank you. Later that evening, they sit in her office. The storms of the day have died down. It's dark outside. The city lights are on. Taehan has brought 2 glasses of water. He feels the need to talk, not as a boss with an employee, but as 2 people caught in the same boat in the middle of a storm. Why weren't you scared? He asks. There, in the hall. Everyone was against you. Imani looks at the glass in her hands. I've seen worse. My mother used to say that when you have nothing to lose, fear fades away. What do you mean? She takes a sip of water, as if gathering strength. My father. He was an accountant, too, a very good one. He worked with all sorts of people, including people like you. He thought he was just doing his job, putting the numbers in order. But one day he saw too much. He wanted out. Clean. He told them he'd write up a report, hand it all over, and retire. She falls silent. Taehan holds his breath, listening. Imani's voice is even, but there's an old, deep pain in it. First, the threats. Then the accident. His car, it fell off a bridge. The police said he broke the rules, lost control. But he was a careful driver. He always wore his seatbelt. And his body, it was never found. Taehan looks at her. Now so much falls into place. Her knowledge, her cold detachment, her principles. She doesn't want to deal with the shadow world because it took her father away from her. Sorry, he says quietly. It's the only thing that comes to mind. Imani shakes her head. It's not your fault. It was a different organization, in a different city. Years ago, I saw how numbers can be dangerous, and how they can tell the truth. I studied everything I could to understand how it works, so that someday I could help someone else avoid following in his footsteps. She looks at Taehan. You asked me when I gave that first piece of advice. You asked me what I wanted. I want what happened to my father to never happen to anyone else. Not even people like you. Taehan digests her words. He's struck by her candor. And her story explains a lot, but not everything. A name from the report pops into his head. Kang Hyun-chul, he says out loud. You found that name on Jin's pay stubs. Does it mean anything to you? Imani's face changes. It's not just sadness that appears, but something sharp, wary. She places the glass on the table. Her fingers tremble slightly. Kang Hyun-chul, she says the name slowly, as if tasting it. He was my father's partner. They started out together, but then their paths diverged. Kang, he went deeper into that world. He became more than just an accountant, but an architect of schemes. Someone who doesn't just keep records, but builds entire underground financial systems. Did you know him? He came to our house when I was little. He brought me candy. He had a strange habit. He kept rubbing his thumb and index finger together, as if counting invisible money. After my father died, Khan disappeared. Mom said he got scared, that he knew too much, and ran away. Taehan puts the pieces together in his head. And now he's getting money from my former assistant. Regularly. Big money. Why? Imani stares into space, her mind racing. My father kept special notebooks. Not digital, but paper. The old-fashioned way. He didn't trust computers for certain things. He wrote everything down in a code he devised himself. It wasn't just numbers, but names, agreements, places, everything he saw and heard. Those notebooks disappeared after he disappeared. My mother looked for them, but she couldn't find them. We thought the police had taken them. She looks at Taehan, and a glimmer of apprehension lights up her eyes. What if it wasn't the police who took them? What if Kang took them? Or someone else? And now Kang is selling the information from those notebooks. Or blackmailing someone? Jin was paying him, so Kang had something on Jin, or... She doesn't finish the sentence, but Taehan understands. Or Kang had something that concerned Taehan himself, and Jin was paying for his silence on his behalf. Tihan stands up and starts pacing the office. Everything in his head comes together into a single, clear, and hurtful picture. He looks at Imani in a new way. "So that's why you're here," he says, his voice hard, cold. "It all falls into place. You knew Jin was connected to Kang. You knew Kang was somehow connected to your father. You didn't come here to give advice. You came to connect with Jin through me, with Jin, with Kang, to find your father's notebooks, or to get revenge. I was simply a bridge, a tool in your personal vendetta." He feels a bitter taste in his mouth. He thought something like trust had developed between them. But it turns out he's once again become a bargaining chip in someone else's game. Imani looks at him, her eyes wide. At first, they reflect confusion, then disappointment, and then the same cold fury he'd seen in the hall. "Do you really think so?" she asks quietly, each word like an icy bullet. "How else can I explain it?" Taehan shrugs. "You appear out of nowhere. You know all my secrets. You know about Kane. You have a personal score to settle with this world, and you choose me for your mission." Imani stands up abruptly, her back straight as a string. "Did you even listen to what I told you? I came here because I saw in you someone who might want to get out. I saw your diagrams, and I saw in them someone who is tired, someone who is looking for a way out, but doesn't know how. I gave you advice for free. You came to me yourself. You offered me a job yourself." Her voice trembled with suppressed emotion. "Yes, I want to find Kang. Yes, I want to know the truth about father. But if I'd simply wanted to use you, would I have saved you from Jin? Would I have told you about father? I could have silently manipulated you, turned you against Jin, and then against Kang. But I didn't. I was honest with you." She takes a step toward him. "And you saw a complex pattern and decided it was simple revenge. You can't see beyond your nose and your world, where every person is either a tool or a threat. You don't understand that someone might simply want to help, so that someone's daughter won't cry over an empty coffin anymore." Tears of anger and resentment stand in her eyes, but she does not let them fall. Taehan is stunned. He's never heard anyone speak to him like this, with such pain and such directness. His logical structure crumbles under the onslaught of her sincerity. "Imani," he begins, but doesn't know what to say. "No," she snaps, raising her hand. "That's it. I'm leaving. I found Kan. Through your payment cards. I have a lead. I'll continue on my own. And you stay here, with your suspicions and your money. Good luck getting out of here alone." She grabs her bag, takes out several flash drives with data from the desk drawer, and places them on the table in front of him. "Your details. Everything's there. The work is done. Send the consultation invoice to my card. Goodbye, Taehan Sayem." She turns sharply and leaves the office. Slamming the door, Taehan is left alone, in silence, broken only by the hum of the computer. He looks at the flash drives on the table. He looks at the closed door. He hears the echo of her words. "So that someone's daughter will no longer cry over an empty coffin." He realizes he's just made a huge mistake, perhaps the biggest of his life, and he doesn't know if it can be fixed. Taehan spends 2 days after their argument in a gloomy, lonely place. He tries to work, but his thoughts constantly return to Imani's last words. He checks for information on Kang through his channels, but it's always a dead end. It seems Kang Hyun-chul is a ghost. That evening, Taehan decides to take a drive around the city alone, without security. He needs some fresh air and a clear head. He drives to the embankment, parks in a quiet spot, and gets out of the car. The night is quiet, only the distant noise of the city and the lapping of water. Taehan stands by the parapet, looking at the dark river. He thinks about Imani's father, about the empty coffin, about his own father, whom he also barely remembers. He doesn't notice the shadows that detach themselves from the walls of the neighboring warehouse. There are 2 of them. They move quickly and quietly, with professional precision. The first thing Taehan feels is a sharp pain in his shoulder. A dull thud, not a gunshot, a silencer. He instinctively falls to the ground, and a second bullet pierces the concrete where his head had been a second ago. Shock and adrenaline clear his mind instantly. He rolls behind cover toward his car. Bullets clatter on the asphalt nearby. He has no weapon. He foolishly, unforgivably went out alone. His only chance is to call and hold out for a few minutes. He fumbles for his phone in his pocket. One thought thumps in his head. Khan! It's him! Imani had found him, and Khan had decided to remove the problem of Taehan. He was right to suspect her. She, without meaning to, had tipped off the killers to him. Bitter irony. Bullets whistle overhead. Tahan presses himself against the wheel. He sees the figures approaching, parting to encircle him. He is doomed. Suddenly, a roar of an engine comes from the other side of the embankment. The bright headlights glare into the eyes of the attackers. A large SUV comes around the corner at full speed and brakes sharply, blocking Tahan's view. The passenger door swings open. "Inside! Quickly!" a familiar voice shouts. Tahan can't believe his eyes. Imani is behind the wheel. Her face is focused, her lips pressed together. She's looking at him, not at the attackers. Instinct overpowers reason. Tahan rolls head over heels into the passenger seat. The door slams shut, and at the same moment, a bullet shatters the rear window. Shards fly across the car. Imani doesn't even flinch. She shifts into gear and stomps on the gas. The SUV takes off. A couple more bullets hit the hull, but they're already racing along the embankment, leaving the shooters far behind. Tahan, breathing heavily, presses his hand to his wounded shoulder. Blood seeps through his fingers. He looks at Imani. She drives confidently, sharply, but without panic. She turns into narrow alleys, then onto a main street, blending into the traffic. How did you know?" He squeezes out with difficulty. "I was watching you," she says briefly, looking at the road. "I put a tracker on your car after Jin left. I thought he might try to get revenge. I was wrong. The attempt at revenge came from the other side. Here you go. Press it." She takes the first aid kit out of the glove compartment with one hand and tosses it into his lap. Her composure in this situation amazes him more than the attack itself. She doesn't take him to the hospital or to his place. She takes him to a small private medical office on the outskirts, which she says she knows about from her father. The doctor, an elderly man, gives him an injection without asking any questions, removes the bullet, and bandages the wound. Tahan is losing a lot of blood, but the wound is not life-threatening. While the doctor works, Tahan's phone vibrates. It's a message from one of his remaining loyal people. He reads it and slowly lowers the phone. Imani asks quietly. She stands by the window, watching the street. "It wasn't Kyung," Tahan croaks. "My men found one of the shooters, the one who survived. He was hit by a car as they were leaving. He named the person who ordered the hit before losing consciousness." He looks up at her. There's shame and weariness in them. "Jin. It was Jin. He decided to take everything. Once he got rid of me, he could come back and take the rest. He knew I'd be vulnerable after our breakup." He pauses. The hardest words are yet to come. "I was wrong. About you. About Khan. You didn't lead the killers to me. You saved my life. And I blamed you." Imani looks at him silently. She doesn't say, "I told you so." She simply nods, as if she expected nothing less. This silent acceptance of his guilt hurts more than any reproach. Tahan spends a week in a safe house provided by Imani. His shoulder is healing. He thinks a lot. About Jin, about Kang, about his business, about a future that seems increasingly uncertain. Imani visits him every day. She brings food, medicine, and the latest news from his organization. His people are distraught, but they're holding on. Jin and his group have disappeared. One day, Tahan asks her to sit down. "I don't know how to ask for forgiveness," he says, looking at the table. "And I probably don't have the right to. Words are worthless in my world." Imani is waiting. He takes a key from his pocket and places it on the table between them. It's not a regular key, but an electronic key card. This is an option, an entire floor in the Embankment Tower Business Center. It's registered to a new, clean company, Han Im Consulting. He pronounces the name, a composite of parts of their names. It has everything, a separate entrance, its own IT security, complete autonomy. He clears his throat. This company is a legitimate business. Its authorized capital is my cleanest money, the kind I earned myself a long time ago, before all this. There's not a cent in it from my old business. He finally looks up at her. "This company is yours, completely. You're the CEO. You hire people, choose projects, manage the profits. I'm just an investor, and I won't interfere. No assignments, no shady schemes, just pure business. If you want it." Imani looks at the shiny keycard. This isn't just an office. This is a bridge. This is an offer to start over, but on her terms. This is his way of saying sorry and trust without actually saying the words. "Why?" she asks. "Because you were right," Tahan says simply. "About everything. And if I have a chance to get out, as you said, it's only with your help. but I can't ask you to risk yourself in my old world anymore. So, build your own. And I'll see if I can get in. Imani slowly reaches out and takes the key. It's warm in his hand. Okay, she says. I'll see what I can do. Im Consulting opens in a month. Imani hires a small team, 2 young, ambitious financiers, a lawyer, and a secretary. Everyone undergoes a rigorous selection process. No connections to Tehan's old world. She's proposing the first project herself. She sees a gap in the market. Fast and reliable delivery of small but valuable items, documents, samples, medications, between business centers, not public transport couriers, nor large logistics companies, something in between, with an emphasis on speed and security. She uses part of the capital to lease several cars, hire drivers with impeccable reputations, and develop a simple tracking app. Marketing is minimal, word of mouth through the lawyer's connections. The Im Express delivery service breaks even. Within 2 months, it's generating its first net profit. It's not much, but it's real, honestly earned money. Tehan, now formally a member of the board of directors, receives his first financial report. He sits in his old office and stares at the numbers. He's accustomed to different amounts, different scales. But this small, neat profit feels like the most valuable income of his life. He smiles involuntarily. News of Imani's success is trickling down to his old team. People who once looked at her with hatred or derision are now discussing it in the smoking room. They don't understand how anyone can make money on such nonsensical things as delivering papers, but they see the results, and they see that Tehan, still their boss, takes it seriously. In their gazes at Imani, a cautious, distrustful, but now respectful curiosity. She's done what they couldn't, created something from scratch that makes money and doesn't stink of gunpowder. Imani, however, isn't relaxing. While her team works to expand the delivery service, she carries out her own quiet work. She's tracking down the remains of Tehan's assets, especially those under Jin's control. She's searching for any leads that might lead to Kong, and her efforts bear fruit. Through her banking connections, her father's legacy, and her own research, she learns that several small but liquid assets of the old organization, 2 garages, a stake in a small transportation company, are suddenly up for sale through a chain of shell companies. The buyer is an offshore company from the British Virgin Islands. Digging deeper, she discovers a connection. The ultimate beneficiary of this company is Kang Hyun-chul. Jin, in hiding, desperately sells off what he can to finance his escape or a new venture. And he sells it to the very man he's been paying for years. Kang buys up chunks of Tehan's empire for next to nothing. This isn't just revenge. It's strategy. Kang is piecing together a puzzle that could hold enormous power. Information from her father's notebooks. Imani knows she must act, but if she tells Tehan, he might respond with force. This would ignite a war that her legitimate business couldn't survive. She decides to remain silent for now and observe. She'd waited too long. One evening, while she was alone at the office, she received a call from an unknown number on her work phone. She picks up the phone. Hello? Imani. Me? My old friend's daughter? Says a soft, tired male voice on the other end. There's something familiar about it. Something from childhood. A shiver runs down her spine. She recognizes that voice, and the habit of dragging out the endings. Mr. Khan? A quiet chuckle on the phone. How nice that you remember me, and how far you've come. A consultant, and even a partner. Your father would be surprised. What do you want? Her voice is sharp, even though her heart is pounding. I want to help you avoid his mistake, baby. Your father was a romantic. He thought he could walk away and forget everything. But our world, it doesn't let go. Especially when you have in your hands a memoir. Imani freezes. The notebooks. You have them. Oh, yes. All 5. Very interesting reading. So many names, so many amounts, so many awkward details. Some of the people in these notebooks are still very influential, and others, like your current partner, are just building their reputations. Imagine what would happen if these notebooks suddenly fell into the hands of, well, say, your competitors, Tehan, or to the police. You're blackmailing me, Imani says quietly. I'm proposing a deal, Khan corrects her. I have what you're looking for, the notebooks, your father's story, and I'm willing to give them to you, in exchange for one small favor. Which one? You have access to everything now. Legal stuff, and I'm sure some other stuff too. I need information about your partner's current operations, about his new connections. about his weak spots. You'll be my eyes and ears inside. And I'll keep your family secrets safe. And your new, oh so beautiful legal life, too. He pauses. If you refuse, well, your Tehan will lose everything. And you will lose your business, and the memory of your father, and perhaps your freedom. After all, your name is in there too, baby. Along with his, the call ends. Imani sits in the darkness of the deserted office, clutching her phone in icy fingers. She faces the most terrifying choice of her life. She stays awake all night. She walks around her new, beautiful office, which has become a symbol of her hope and a new beginning. She touches the tables and chairs and looks at the company logo on the wall. On one side were her father's notebooks, her only connection to him, the key to the truth about his death, and Tehan's safety. If the notebooks were published, his new, fragile world would collapse. His old world would come crashing down on him with renewed vigor. He could be imprisoned, or worse. And her company, built on his clean money, would be destroyed by association. On the other hand, there was betrayal. If she agreed to spy for Kang, she would betray the little trust that had developed between her and Tehan. She would become what he had always suspected from the start, a spy who had joined his ranks for selfish reasons. She would ruin the chance for something real, and she would allow Kang, the man possibly involved in her father's death, to control her life again. She can't tell Tehan. Once he learns of the blackmail, he'll either give in to Kang or engage in open warfare with him. Both options will lead to disaster for his attempt at change. She's trapped. She must choose between the past, her father and revenge, and the future, Tehan, and their shared cause, between truth and betrayal, and either choice seems unbearable. At dawn, she sits down at the computer. Her face is pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She opens a blank file. She must give Khan an answer. She must decide now. She looks at the office keycard lying on her desk. She looks at her screen. Her fingers hover over the keyboard. Which path should I choose? The path of a daughter yearning for truth, or the path of a partner who has promised to help someone escape the darkness? She closes her eyes. She remembers her father's face in an old photograph. She remembers Tehan looking at the first profit report with that childish, almost unrecognizable smile. And she takes the first step. She starts typing. Imani doesn't text Khan. Instead, she closes her computer, grabs her bag, and the keycard to Tehan's office. She's heading to see him. He's currently at the old, but now nearly empty base. Only a few of the most loyal people remain. She enters without knocking. Tehan is sitting at his desk, studying some papers. He looks tired but focused. He raises his eyebrows when he sees her. They've barely seen each other since the office handover, communicating only on business matters. Imani, what happened? She approaches the desk and places the keycard to his gifted office in front of him, then her pass to his old organization. I'm leaving, she says, her voice clear, even though everything inside is shaking. Today. Disappearing. I have no choice. Tehan slowly stands up. Explain. And she explains everything. About Khan's call, about the blackmail, about her father's notebooks, about the choice he gave her. Betray Tehan or lose everything. If I stay, he'll carry out his threat, Imani says, looking at the floor. He'll unleash everything he has on you. Your attempts at a new start will be destroyed in one day. My company too, and I won't let that happen. Not because of me. She pauses, gathering her strength. So I'm leaving. I'll disappear. Maybe then he'll leave you alone. And I'll try to find him myself. A different way. She waits. Waits for his anger, his suspicions, his silent nod that would signal his agreement with her decision. After all, it's the most logical thing for him to do. Eliminate the source of the problem. Tehan is silent for a long time. He looks at the cards on the table, then at her pale, determined face. He remembers how she saved him on the embankment, how she said she wanted to help him get out, how she built that small but so important business from scratch. He steps forward, takes both his cards and hers, and hands them back to her. No, he says simply. Imani looks at the cards in his hand, not understanding. No, you're not leaving, Tehan repeats. His voice is firm. This isn't your fault, and I won't let this man, this Kane, Kanu, she corrects automatically. This Kane, Tehan repeats, is going to ruin the life of a man who just wanted to do the right thing again. First your father, now you and my chance. He places the cards in her hand and covers her palm with his. His hands are warm and firm. We'll figure this out together. he says, looking her straight in the eye. For the first time, he says we, not as boss and employee, but as allies, partners. No running away, no giving up. Together. Imani feels a lump in her throat. She didn't expect this, not a bit. She was ready for anything but this simple, firm support. But how? She breathes out. He's blackmailing us. Then we'll stop fearing his blackmail, says Tihan. A familiar glint appears in his eyes, but this time it's not cruelty, but calculation. If he wants to play the same old games, we'll play them. But in a new way. Their plan is hatched within hours. It's risky, but it's the only way to bring Khan out of the shadows and neutralize the threat once and for all. 2 days later, Imani contacts Khan. She tells him she agrees. She's scared. She wants to protect her father and her new business. She's willing to provide information. Kang is pleased. He gives her her first task, to learn the details of Taehan's upcoming deal to sell one of his last legitimate assets, a small shipping company, the very same company that Jin tried to sell to Kane through proxies. Taehan and Imani fabricate fictitious documents about the deal. They inflate the price and list non-existent investors. They deliberately leave vulnerabilities in the documents, clauses that would supposedly allow Kane to sabotage the deal or blackmail the investors. This is bait. Imani hands the documents to Kane. She plays the role of a frightened but cooperative informant. She says the original documents and key correspondence are stored on Tahan's secure laptop in his old office, and that Tahan will be there alone tomorrow evening, preparing the final paperwork. It's a trap. They know Kang won't come himself. He'll send someone, most likely someone with a personal grudge against Taehan and who desperately needs money and to restore his position. China. Evening. Taehan's old office seems empty. A lamp burns on the desk, supposedly awaiting its owner. The safe, according to their leak, contains not only the fictitious documents for the deal, but also, most importantly for Kang, a digital copy of all 5 of Imani's father's notebooks. At least, that's what they claimed. In the adjacent building, in an empty room overlooking the office, sit Taehan, Imani, and their small, carefully selected circle of confidants. Also present is a short, middle-aged man with glasses, a lawyer Imani found through her new connections. The lawyer is connected to the financial police. They wait. Imani is nervous, Tahan motionless as a rock. An hour later, a car pulls up to the building. 2 people get out. One is Jin. He looks older and nervous, but his eyes sparkle with determination. The other is a stocky man, his bodyguard. They enter the building unnoticed. Through hidden cameras, Taehan and Imani watch them ascend to the desired floor, and Jin deftly pry open the door to the office. They're waiting for Jin to find the safe and start opening it. This is the moment. Instead of releasing his men, Taehan nods to the lawyer. He dials a number. 5 minutes later, 3 unidentified vehicles pull up to the building. Men in formal attire emerge from them, not ordinary police officers, but members of the Economic Crimes Unit. They enter the building. Taehan and Imani watch on camera as they burst into the office. Jin is caught off guard, holding Taehan's laptop and the safe open. He tries to shout something, but is quickly subdued. And then something unexpected happens. A third car appears right at the entrance to the building. An elderly, neatly dressed man steps out, Kang Hyun-chul. He didn't trust Jin with everything. He came personally to oversee the situation and collect the grand prize, the notebooks. He sees the police and tries to get back into the car, but Imani's lawyer has anticipated this too. A second group of officers blocks his car. Taehan watches as Kang, maintaining an outward calm, says something to the police, showing them some papers. He's clearly trying to get out of it. Imani picks up the microphone connected to the speakerphone on the ground floor of the building. Her voice, cold and clear, carries across the quiet street. "Inspector, please check the inside pocket of Mr. Kang's jacket. I'm sure you'll find the key to the safe deposit box there." The box contains the original accounting ledgers proving his years of fraud, tax evasion, and blackmail, including, and most importantly, evidence of embezzlement at Chongsong Industries 10 years ago, which led to the bankruptcy of the company and the death of an innocent accountant. Khan freezes. His hand instinctively reaches to his chest. This movement is his confession. The policeman politely but firmly asks him to show the contents of his pocket. Imani placed in those notebooks not only her father's notes, but also her own, impeccably crafted conclusions linking Khan to the long-ago crime. She gave the police not just a memory of her father, but a weapon against his killer. Kang and Jin. They have been detained. They are being taken away. The operation was a success. The threat, it would seem, has been neutralized, but there's no joy. An hour after his arrest, Taehan's lawyer contacts him. His voice is tense. Taehan Sayam, they want to talk to you, the financial police, formally as a witness to the crime in whose office it was, but they're asking questions about more than just the present. They're asking about the sources of the initial capital for your legitimate businesses, about Han Im Consulting. They're very interested. Taehan understands. The stone has been cast. The ripples will reach him too. Now his business, his money, everything is under close scrutiny. They will dig, and if they find even a hint of a connection to his past, everything will collapse. He thanks the lawyer and hangs up. He sits in the dark, empty room, looking at the city lights. He's won the battle, but the war for his new life is just beginning. And it will be fought not on the streets, but in offices, with numbers and laws. The most difficult war. The next day, Taehan gathers the remaining key people. There are only a few of them now. He speaks to them directly. The old days are over. Jin has been arrested. Kang has been arrested. Any action, any operation that even hints at the old ways will now attract attention that will bury us all. From now on, we are a legitimate business. Every deal, every penny must be transparent and legal. If anyone isn't ready for this, now is the time to go. No hard feelings, but with consideration. Some leave. They don't believe life can be any different. Those who remain are either tired, wanting to sleep peacefully at night, or those who believed in Imani's success. Taehan disbands most of his old team, paying them generous severance pay from that same clean money. His empire shrinks sharply. Now it consists of several legitimate firms and Han Im Consulting. He begins to study the laws and tax codes himself. He consults with Imani's lawyers. He learns to live in a new world where power lies not in fear, but in contracts, and safety lies not in guns, but in an impeccable reputation. It's unfamiliar. It's difficult. Sometimes it's humiliating. But there's no other way. A week later, Taehan comes to Imani's office. She's in a meeting. He waits in the reception area until she finishes. When the employees leave, he comes in. "I can't do this alone," he says without preamble. "I don't know this new world. I make mistakes. My instincts keep pulling me back to old, simple solutions." Imani listens silently. "I need a partner," he continues. "Not a consultant, not an employee, a partner. Someone who will see everything, make decisions with me. Someone who will stop me when I'm heading down the drain, just like I used to. Someone who will build this new business not for me, but with me." He pauses. "I'm offering you to become my partner, an equal, in everything that concerns legitimate business. We share the profits, we share the risks, we share the responsibility. 50-50. This is more than a job offer. It's an offer to share his destiny, to entrust her with not just a fraction, but half of everything he has left." Imani looks at him, thoughts racing through her head. She sees how he's changed, how he's struggling with himself, how he's sincerely trying to get out. But she also sees a shadow, the shadow of his past, which won't let go. Police questions, former comrades who might want revenge, old debts and obligations that might surface at the most inopportune moment. "I'm afraid," she admits out loud. "I see that you're changing, but I'm afraid your past is a mine. It could explode at any moment and destroy everything we've built. Not because you want it to, but simply because it exists." Taehan nods. He doesn't deny it. "It's true. It's a risk. There's a mine. I don't know where or when it'll go off, but I do know one thing. If I try to go alone, I'll definitely step on it. I need someone who sees the way, someone who knows where to step and where not. I need your gaze. Always." His honesty is disarming. He doesn't promise that everything will be smooth. He acknowledges the danger. "Think about it," he says. "There's no rush. This decision is permanent." He leaves, leaving her alone in the office that has become a symbol of her independence. And now she is being asked to combine that independence with the most risky partnership of her life. Imani's decision is left hanging when Taehan's past literally comes crashing into his life. A man arrives at his new, modest office. His name is Jason. He's older than Taehan. They started out together many years ago. Then their paths diverged. Jason remained in the deepest, darkest corners of the business. He looks respectable, with an expensive suit and a smile, but his eyes are cold like a snake's. "Taehan, yeah!" Jason hugs him like an old friend. I heard you exposed yourself. Good job. Smart. They drink coffee. Jason talks about old times, then gets down to business. You see, I have a small problem. I have a container. A very valuable one. It arrived at the port, but the paperwork is a little messed up. Customs is asking questions, and now I hear you have excellent legal logistics channels and an impeccable reputation. One call from you, one letter from your new, clean company, and all the questions will be cleared up. Will you help an old friend? Tehan understands. The container is clearly full of contraband. Drugs, weapons, counterfeit goods. It doesn't matter. Jason wants to use his new, clean reputation as a pass for his dirty dealings. If Tehan refuses, he'll make a powerful and cruel enemy. If he agrees, he'll cross the line he's drawn for himself. He'll once again become part of the world he's trying to escape, and everyone will be right. There is no such thing as clean. Tehan puts his cup down. He looks at Jason's smile. I can't, Jae-sung-hyung, he says calmly. My companies don't handle uncleared goods, and I personally don't interfere with customs. It's against my principles and the law. Jason's face freezes, then slowly fades. His eyes become piercing. Principles? He asks quietly. Interesting. And do you remember how you and I, in '98, exported those very parts? Through the port of Busan. You had no principles then. There was necessity, Tehan says simply. Nobody changes, Jason hisses, leaning across the table. You're just pretending. While it's convenient for you, but when the going gets tough, you'll come back, or they'll bring you back, by force. He stands up, straightening his jacket. Too bad. I thought you were smarter. You just made a big mistake, Tehan. A really big one. You forgot who gave you your first capital, who covered for you after the incident with the package. Debts have to be repaid, or else the collectors will come after them. He turns and leaves, slamming the door. Tehan sits alone in silence. His hands are clenched into fists. He's just made a serious enemy. He did it deliberately. He's chosen his principles, and now he must be prepared to face the consequences. But for the first time in a long time, he feels not fear, but a strange, bitter calm. He made the right choice, even if it will cost him dearly. Tehan sits alone in his office, staring at the closed door. The silence after Jason's departure seems thick and resonant. He did it. He refused. This decision will unleash a wave of problems. He knows. Threats, sabotage, pressure on the business. But for the first time in many years, there is no clenching fear in his chest. There is a weary confidence. He picks up the phone and dials Amani's number. Can you come in? He asks when she picks up the phone. 5 minutes later, she's in his office. He tells her everything about Jason's visit, about the container, about the refusal, about the threats. Imani listens without interrupting. When he finishes, she looks at him long and carefully. There's no horror in her eyes. There's assessment, calculation. He'll try to exert pressure through logistics, she finally says. Our contracts with the port, bank guarantees. He might even try to discredit us by leaking some old information. She speaks not as someone who's afraid, but as a strategist assessing the risks. We need to analyze all the vulnerabilities, strengthen the contracts, and perhaps take a preemptive step. Which one? Tehan asks. We've already started this with Khan. We're taking action through the law. We have lawyers. We have financial police who are now keeping an eye on us. Sometimes the best defense is visibility. We can initiate an audit of our operations ourselves. Make our transparency our shield, Tehan understands. She's not suggesting running or hiding. She's suggesting facing the threat head-on, not with fists, but with documents. This is her world, and it's increasingly becoming their world. You're right, he says, and after a pause he adds, about your decision, I'm waiting for your answer. But now, after this visit, I understand if you say no, it will only get more dangerous. Imani looks at him. She sees his tired face, his straight shoulders, his willingness to accept her refusal. She remembers how he returned the keys to her, how he said we, how he had just abandoned an old friend, choosing principles. No, Imani says quietly. Tehan freezes. His heart sank. I'm not saying no to your offer, she corrects. I'm saying no to your words. It hasn't become more dangerous. It has become clearer. Now I see exactly whose side you're on, and whose side I want to be on. She takes a step forward. I agree. To be partners, 50-50, with all the risks. With this mine under our feet, we will tread carefully, and we will tread together. She extends her hand for a handshake, as if at a business meeting. But in her eyes, it's not just an agreement, it's a choice. Trust. Taehan looks at her hand, then looks up at her. He doesn't shake her hand. Instead, he places his hand on top of hers. Not squeezing, just touching. Together, he says. And it sounds like a vow. The simplest and most important agreement of his life.